Right.
Yeah, you saw it. Okay. Okay. Welcome to Quantum Leap. One of your hosts, David Kirsten, and our other host, Cory, not here standing by. I'm just gonna close my mail here so we don't get some weird badges and things. But welcome. Today we're gonna go over the Thought Leader program, and a lot of it's based on Cory's thoughts on a lot of things. I think the crux of it is, and it's really kind of a fusion of some different things, but I'll get more into that. I first wanted to have Cory introduce himself, and just want to say I'm excited to go through this program with you, Cory, because it's get some initial feedback, and I think I'd like to put it out as a book at some point too. So if you
Yeah,
don't mind just introducing yourself and
sure. I'm Cory Knott, and I am co-owner of Take Wing Coaching. I focus on business partnerships, so people who want to be in business together and have it be harmonious and a well-run business.
okay, great. And really, I'll just go through an initial review, and you've probably heard most of what I'm going to say today, and in one form or another. We did do some previews of it last season, but really, it's based on it's inspired by Bruce Lee and the writings of Bruce Lee. Really, this is kind of the critical book, this Be Water, My Friend by Shannon Lee. And I think that why I got so interested in Bruce Lee is he really combines thought and action. I've never really seen, we know other people who do that. We were talking before we came on about thought leaders that we admire, and you mentioned Ivan Meisner with BNI, which I really love the combination of people who have thoughts, but they also live it and they put it into action too. So I'd say Ivan Meisner has a real philosophy of action too. I got to look more closely at his new book, The Third Paradigm, but he's really breaks new ground in a lot of things. I was first going to just, as a little intro, just ask you about any thought leaders that you admire and why.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's always Ivan Meisner, right? I mean, I've been in BNI forever, and so he really sets the standard for referral marketing, and throw that in with Mike Macedonio, who's probably not really well known, but in that arena, he ought to be. He and Don and Eddie. Um, okay, I'm blanking on Eddie's last name, so help me out there. Um, and
Oh, Eddie. Yeah, I am too. I would
Esposito,
also. Yeah.
Eddie Esposito. Yeah, I mean, they really came up with the system for building referral marketing, which is, even as I go through Provisors now, I can see, what I took away from that as being the benefit. I've used all those tools to really start rapidly building up, actually myself as an industry leader. It's a useful tool in that, because that's really the goal, is to be seen for, why you do what you do, and what your vision is for your work in your industry. Who else? Simon Sinek is a good one. I enjoy his work. I am not a huge follower of a lot of industry leaders, only because I usually like to get things filtered to me by people who put it into practical use. But Brian Tracy would be another one that I enjoy listening to some of his work. Um, that's about it for the moment.
Yeah, and I'll just make a distinction there too. I'd say thought leader and industry leader almost. The industry leader, I really see all industry leaders are thought leaders in some way, and this thought leader program is kind of intended to be kind of like, um, you know, the road to becoming an industry leader, so to speak, as we'll see. And I think, Bruce Lee, for example, became an industry leader because he was a thought leader. And a lot of times you just see the results that show up right away and made
Right.
him, a Hollywood icon. But it's really how he thought about stuff that made him so unique. And he was one of the first people to kind of battle with the studios too. They were trying to really water down his Enter the Dragon and make it just kind of a crappy movie, but he knew what he wanted in that movie, and it ended up being one of the best movies of all time, and kind of in that genre, and kind of also really putting him on the path to being an industry leader. And I think So I think what's so unique about Bruce Lee is how he has this incredible like aura and strength about him, but it really originated from how he thought about stuff as a really a thought leader. And I'd say not until after his death does anybody even think about him as being a thought leader. And maybe it's not even until this book came out. You know, a lot of times the most influential thought leaders, they aren't really even thought of that until, you know, after they're gone. So we'll talk more about that. I'd say one thing, I was talking to a family member and about things and was saying, well, you know, some thoughts and things can be offensive, especially these days if you're telling the truth about something, maybe in public health or, you know, and it's out of step with what's the mainstream. You know, it can get you into hot water with your superiors. But you know, I came up with what I would call it eternal principles test that, you know, as a thought leader, if you're in line with the eternal principles of things, you're going to be on the right side of history, so to speak. So if you are coming at it from a, you know, authentic and a truthful place, something that's right. And, you know, I just think if you're out of step with some folks out there today, that's probably a good thing in some respects, especially, you know, the tack that you take. And there's a lot of ways you can kind of make things more palatable, I think. I don't know if you have any thoughts on, you know, this issue of thought leadership in today's world and how to kind of still be in the right, but not, you know, get into maybe some more hot water, maybe get fired from your job or whatnot.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, as far as jobs go, it's like if you're going to get fired from your job for what you're thinking, then maybe you don't belong in that job. But you know, it's you have to decide whether you take a stand for what you believe or, you know, embrace the company correct beliefs. But I haven't had a job in so long, so I can't really tell you. I think you know, it's good to find the people that have your values and go with that. I tend to steer away from religion and politics because I like to be diplomatic and network with everyone. But I have had, you know, dipped my toes in politics in the past and found it very successful. And maybe as, you know, I get where I want to be, I will get more back into that. But I think, you know, I like I heard a phrase recently that I don't know who actually said it or where it came from. It seems to be not well known, but is, you know, as you know, in life as in sports, the booing, the most of the booing comes from the cheap seats. So, you know, the loudest people tend to be the ones who have the least real influence. And so if you're afraid to speak up, because there's some people might be booing you, just think about where are they really coming from, and you know, is it going to affect you? And I think that that's one of the things you have to do as a thought leaders, step out and, you know, even in your industry, you know, people tend to be really set, like this is the way things should be. And if you're bringing up a different idea or some new ideas, there's going to be people who will try to shoot it down. And those are usually not the people who are successful.
Yeah, I'll just share a quick anecdote that I think is particularly timely about one of Bruce's quips with the studios, you know, especially with a lot of the writers' strikes these days. He actually, with Enter the Dragon, he actually wouldn't go to work and, you know, until the script was revised because they were trying to make him be this kind of cookie cutter action figure, and he was like, no, it's not going to have the same impact. So he actually wouldn't go to work until the script was revised, and they sent studio people to his house every day for several weeks, and they were losing lots of money, and they finally bend caved to him. I mean, in today's world he might have just gotten fired right off, who knows, but you know, that's what really built his career. So, you know, it is challenging to know when to take a stand and when to, you know, fold, so to speak. Know when to hold them, know when to fold them. But I'll just say, you know, the real another real concept of that I love about this program, and it's really 12 modules. We're not going to be able to go through everything today. I'm just going to, in our introduction to the program, we have, I think, 3 more episodes after this. I just want to go through some of the key parts of the program. And it's really a coaching program that's going to be a book, and it's really a system of thought of how to develop yourself as a thought leader. And we're going to go through all the key things on the show. And then I'd encourage folks to do their initial study or their additional study. But I just love this concept of self-actualization. I think that's why I love the creative arts, because to actually kind of become who you're meant to be self-actualized. And I think that's what we see in Bruce Lee, why I really admire him as a person. You're not really held back. And I'll just say a few things about that we really have all this uniqueness inside of us, and we have to learn how to draw that out. And Bruce would say using no way as way and having no limitation as limitation, and that's how he lived. That was a core tenet. And he also stressed the importance of being in the flow, being present, choosing to live his life consciously, purposefully, and intentionally. And this other quality of being pliable, he called it like being like water. So these things that you just adapt. And another thing we're going to get into more is the yin and the yang, this kind of like unyielding part versus the completely pliable, and how we have each of those components within us. And I'll just he actually, all these principles he came up with to be a good martial artist, which you see in action and you see in the results that he get, but it's really ways of thought. It kind of began with thought. So I just love this kind of duality, or this things that it starts in your mind, but then you see that in your results in the external. And that's why he's such a fascinating figure. So this concept of self-actualization, I'm going to kind of, this is a whole really, it's a whole real concept that I think should almost be a role of, a goal of folks, to raise our youth to be able to be self-actualized. And I don't know if you've ever came across that principle before. I know we've referenced it on the show before, but I feel like you're self-actualized in a lot of ways, in that you're doing what you want to do as a entrepreneur and teaching what you want to teach. But a lot of people are maybe in a job that they're not happy with. Maybe it's in, so they're trying to get more in alignment with who they are, who they want to be.
Yeah, I think, self-actualization is something to work on. It's a need. There's so many people I don't even know where to go with that. It's the top level of, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you look at, Graves' spiral dynamics, self-actualization is also up near the top. But it's something that you continuously strive for. It isn't a thing that you are like, I am self-actualized. I don't.
Yeah,
you reach one
it's
level
a state of being.
There's a lot more to do.
Yeah.
It's a mountain that never ends, really.
Yeah, it's really a way to live your life. And I have a kind of a medium-sized quote here. I'll just read, and we'll leave this issue there. To self-actualize, and this is Shannon Lee writing about Bruce. To self-actualize is to raise your human vibration, reach for your greatest potential, and express it outwardly as you move through life at the highest level possible, whatever that may be. Where you choose to express it, in your hobbies, in your work, in your relationships, is just the vehicle through which you shine your light. When your purpose is simply to be the most high-functioning and joyful version of you that you can be, then every moment can be an opportunity to fulfill your purpose, and the journey becomes so much more exciting. You now have a purpose no matter what. Even the difficulties become more manageable when we are committed to expressing the truth of who we are. And to sum up, my father encouraged a lifelong process of self-actualization, to To actualize means to make a reality of. And so then to self actualize is to make a reality of oneself. It is to know oneself and express the uniqueness of oneself in the world with such skill and with such ease that, like water, it will flow naturally from you. Think about how water is water. It doesn't try to be anything else. To be like water is to be engaged in a process of discovering and then embodying our most real and true selves, wrote Shannon Lee. And she says, it's a lifelong process, and it's really the essentially the essence of living a full or complete life. So beautiful words by Shannon. I almost think it is something you have to write down. It's hard to really talk about it unless you have some of the stuff memorized already, which I'm still kind of just touching the tip of the iceberg. But I think really the key is, how do you get there? How do you get on that path? How do you start feeling like you're in that flow, that you are self-actualizing? And I think that's why I created the program. That's why we do a lot of the things that you teach, and that's what you help people really self-actualize in their business, so to speak, which also helps them self-actualize in their life. But,
Yeah, I think a lot of self-actualization comes with awareness, but self-awareness takes actually longer than self-actualization, because it one actually kind of flows from the other. And I think that it's important also to realize that self-actualization doesn't necessarily mean having to reach the peak potential. It can be having, great experiences, being, I say, problem focused rather than victim focused. Like, I am, being persecuted versus I am, here is a problem for me to solve, or, to find help to find somebody to help me solve this problem. Which is one of the reasons why I typically like working with business owners. And I think, to be an industry leader, that's the first thing you kind of have to overcome is, how do you solve these things, these problem solving skills, being independent. There's, yeah, and as you said, having a sense of purpose. And, but that purpose doesn't necessarily have to be the great big world changing purpose. It could be something, again, in your industry where I want to be a thought leader in what I'm doing. It's not a great big purpose, but it's, it's a good business. And it helps a lot of people. And so sometimes I think we get these bright lights of these big names doing things, but really we can be self-actualized and happy in what we're creating, and enjoying the journey, I think, is actually a big part of it. Rather than feeling like the destination is a must before you can find happiness and awareness and fulfillment.
yeah, well put. And I know I got pretty high in the clouds there on some of that stuff, and it
Oh, that's
can be
okay.
just
Yeah.
living in alignment with your
Right.
career and your family and being happy with that, the kind of simple life, so I have one other little anecdote that really, I think, sums up his philosophy in large part, and I think something that's so timely today. And he calls it the empty cup. And he wrote this article, Bruce did, in 1971 about, and again, this comes from um, a philosophy about fighting what's going to make you successful there, but it's even more applicable to just thought. And he said, Bruce wrote, a learned man once went to a Zen master to inquire about Zen. As the master talked, the learned man would frequently interrupt him with remarks like, oh, yes, we have that too, and so forth. Finally, the Zen master stopped talking and began to serve tea to the learned man. However, he kept pouring and the tea cup overflowed. Enough, no more can go into the cup, the learned man interrupted. Indeed, I see, answered the Zen master. If you do not first empty your cup, how can you taste my cup of tea? And I just love this anecdote, because how many times have you been talking to somebody about something that that would help them, but if they don't have an open mind or willing to kind of receive it, it's not going to do any good. So I think so much of being a thought leader and really achieving those higher level of being and happiness is unlearning some of these patterns and things that that really aren't serving us, although we may not recognize that.
Well, there's definitely a lot to unlearn. I spent a lifetime learning, and I do still, but there's a lot of times you just have to let go of things that you're really attached to. Even core beliefs can be um, can hold you back, right? Examine what they are and why do you believe that. My philosophy is really to question everything. It's not just question, but actually challenge. Like, is that really true? And why do I believe it's true? And can I defend it? And that's really kind of one of my approaches to coaching too. Is that deeper level of coaching is that really what's true? Um, and not in an offensive way. It's just to keep asking the question until the truth reveals itself.
Yeah, and I think part of that's why we get along so well. We always approach each other's thoughts and opinions with an open mind. And I think it's interesting the application to fighting, how I see how he use it. He would teach people this combat through a method that he invented, that you actually, if you're thinking about something else or you're really not, it's about being in the present, that to be kind of empty your cup and be in the present and be ready to receive. That's how you kind of trust your intuition and what's going to come at you without having a preconceived notion. So that's how Bruce was so able to anticipate everything, to kind of like wipe your mind clear and have an empty cup going into each bout, and really not, kind of taking life as it comes and being present. So, yeah.
Right.
But anyway, well, we're about at time for
Right.
that. We're going to talk about this a few more times before the break. And I was getting that book in order that we're working on for early next year. So I'm going to have a draft for you soon, Cory, to start looking at that for the other Rising Star issues. So I look forward to going over that with you. And that'll be kind of our next body of discussion for early next year once we get that done. But we have a few more episodes of this where we're going to talk more about this thought leader program and as it relates to a lot of things that you teach, and just get your reaction and kind of just start getting it out there in the world.
I like it. Yeah, I'm sure we have plenty we can cover on there.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thanks for listening, and thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll see you next time on Quantum Leap, and we do have a guest coming up here shortly. Thank you.